Oklahoma wins 34-30 in the Cotton Bowl against Texas. This game was insane. I was at the game with a friend of mine that I had to drag away from a wedding. I had to talk specifically like with the wife, or soon to be wife, the spouse, in order to try to get this moved off of Red River Weekend, just to be able to like take him there. And I'd made a lot of dumb decisions to be able to be at this game. Because this game, as some Texas fans have claimed, it was Oklahoma's Super Bowl. It was. We're going to talk about that. The atmosphere of this game is electric. There is nothing like it. There is no type of environment I have ever been at where you get the full 50-50 and those momentum swings you see on the Texas side. That's one of the tough parts, admitting as an Oklahoma fan, of what makes this game special to me, is that watching the Texas side after Texas does something like insanely cool is part of the fun of being there. And some of you fans may not like, to hear that necessarily, but it is true. The atmosphere it's just a special environment. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, obviously you love Owen Field. It's not something that's ever going to go away. But outside of top 10, top 5 matchups, there's not really a reason for OU fans to get excited. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the excitement over the past couple of years for this program has kind of been locked behind the Cotton Bowl. That's nothing against the program or the Cotton Bowl. It's a wonderful cocktail of bullshit for both fan bases. But it is sad because I tried to explain to the buddy I took on this trip with me that this game is just different. This atmosphere is different. You think you've been to an OU game. He's a casual. He doesn't quite understand. He's not a casual. Shout out Late Kick. But he's not. He just isn't a diehard. He's not someone who's grown up with a football program and doesn't quite understand it. He got the full baptism this week. He got to understand what OU football is about, what Texas football is about, and what the Red River is about, and hopefully what college football is about. The reason I'm making this video is because a lot of people on Twitter are saying that this was OU's Super Bowl, that this game was just... I don't know. And when people say Super Bowl, that's not necessarily a really wise insult. Like, oh, you got up for this game. Oh, you made a big deal out of this game. Well, of course, first of all, we're going to talk scheduling dynamics. For OU, there is no winner on this schedule outside of Texas. And Texas going into Bryant-Denny and beating Alabama was just going to further, exacerbate the hype and the electricity around this game for OU, because there is just no other real competitor just on the schedule. That's just the way the Big 12 has been and operated for almost the entire time that Nebraska and A&M left this conference. It's kind of a bum deal. I wish that weren't the case, but it's been surprise dark horses. This year it looks like West Virginia could be a dark horse. I still think there's a shot Oklahoma State kind of gets their shit worked out and they're able to, make a run at the title this year. But there has never been, outside of maybe the, early teens, Art Briles, Baylor, Big 12 champions that have really consistently year in produced a good football program. It has been a constant carousel. Kansas is another team I forgot to mention. Kansas is a team that could, with Jaden Daniels finally be able to get over the hump this year and make a run. So OU was going to have this game highlighted, circled, not just because it was Red River, but because this was really the only game. If you looked at the ticket prices for Oklahoma football, which I did unfortunately, any game outside of this and the final year we are playing Bedlam before we had the SEC is under $75. All the hype this year for OU has been around those two games. I know those are the only two tickets I bought this year was Texas game and Bedlam. This game was a top 10 matchup. And that doesn't really happen in the Red River a whole lot. Before this, I think the last time it has been this highly rated was 2008. I could be wrong on that. But I think it was 08, and then I think 11 or 12 was a top 15 matchup. Like OU Texas in the top 10 primetime ABC of this magnitude and this belief for both sides. Because there's been, if you want to go back to like the 11 or 12 side, Texas got blown out in that game. It wasn't close. It's been a while. I don't know what the hype or the belief scale was indicating, but I know for this game, this is the first time in a while in my recent memory being like 5 to 7 years, that both sides went into this game really feeling like they could win and they could really do things this year. Maybe a little less belief on the OU side, but I had a lot of faith in this team, and it showed out. That's why I really highlighted this game and felt like it was going to be special, and why it was my Super Bowl. Both sides are going to the SEC next year. And I know that doesn't sound like a good reason for this game to be necessarily hyped up as much as it is. But OU was essentially assassinated 2 years ago. And that leads into the main points of this video, is that this game meant a lot of things for OU for a lot of reasons. But you need to go back to November 28th and remember what happened to this program. Lincoln Riley leaves for USC. It's a cool, crisp Sunday morning. I was at a friend's house watching the Bedlam game, watching Caleb Williams storm down late to try and pull another rabbit out of a hat to be able to salvage another terrible defensive performance by the Sooners, and it comes up short. The run down the sidelines happens, and we just run out of gas. Game's over. Pandemonium at Boone Pickett Stadium. And I had already agreed with my friend I think OU and OSU were one of them mathematically was going to go to the Big 12 championship, and we agreed that whoever goes, like, we were going to go together even if OU didn't make it. So we ended up going to the Big 12. That's a separate story. And so you're bummed out, like, okay, well, we're 10-2. Another sad defensive performance. Grinch was recruiting decent. I think we had about a top 7 class at the time. The defense was still recruiting well. We're still trying to, we were really hoping for a big leap. And you wake up the next morning and you see Dusty Dvorak, you see Pete Thamel, you see all of these college football insiders saying that Lincoln Riley is leaving. And the shock and awe around Oklahoma, around the fandom, was just insane. I know Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, and that was also kind of a stunner of stunners. But things like that just don't happen. Blue blood programs don't get poached unless it's for the NFL. You understand if it's the NFL and they, kind of a side trail, but I don't necessarily even blame Lincoln Riley for leaving for USC. In hindsight, now that I have seen more of where college football is going and what type of crap these coaches are put through in order to put a good product on the field, especially at the blue blood level, what kind of staffing you need to have, how many, what recruiting's a nightmare. You need to effectively be able to run a large business on top of coaching a football program now. It's insane. And if Lincoln Riley does decide to go to the NFL, I don't blame him. I've thought about becoming a coach before, and one of the things I have opted out of, getting out of potentially making that a profession is because the amount of stress and the amount of time consumed into working insane 80, 90-hour weeks like I know those, a lot of people in those programs are doing. Anyway, that tangent aside, we got punched in the mouth. And I don't know if you guys have watched Nebraska lately, but they're irrelevant. Like, there was the fear that we weren't going to be able to find a suitable replacement for Lincoln Riley just because of, what happened. We were heading to the SEC, and if we didn't get our crap together really quickly, it was going to be bad. This was not a 1 or 2 year situation. This was developing 3 to 5 years of Oklahoma football not really being worth a darn because we were going to have to, cycle through so much and get stuff. That was the other thing. We lost our best player. Our entire team got portaled to USC. And by entire team, I mean specifically Caleb Williams. We like that entire wide receiver room left. Anyone who is anybody on that offense left in the wake of that disaster is just like... So for OU fans, there wasn't really a lot of hope. The entire program just got gutted overnight. And no, that isn't necessarily, Lincoln Riley's fault or responsibility per se. But he left Oklahoma in a very vulnerable and a very, very difficult position. And we, all the credit in the world to Joe Castiglione, because this program was in a bad way. Bob Stoops came back. He was the interim head coach just to, inject some life and to stabilize what was just a disaster. Like, OU football was in the gutter. Like, just a absolute explosion, dumpster fire, use whatever terminology you want to. This program was in a bad way. And we brought Brent Venables in, and, there was a lot of people, there was a lot of fans who were still cautious about bringing Brent in. A couple people, just because the reason he's never been a head coach before, but the other being, he got booed out of this town. He got booed out of Norman. He was kicked. He was politely ran out of town by Bob Stoops and, sent to Clemson. Hindsight being 2020 now, the spread offense blew up in 2010, 2011, and being able to adapt at that time was very difficult for a lot of people. And so you can't put that on a 30-something coach when there's a new meta shift and he's not able to immediately adapt to it. So that aside, there was a lot of people who, just because of the stigma, same reason like a lot of people didn't want to hire Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel was ran out of town by Sooner Nation. The Trevor Knight, Blake Bell era, offense was just not working out and was just a disaster at times. So there were a lot of questions, and there were a lot of reasons why this game was so important for Oklahoma. Going back to last year, the Brent Venables experiment seemed to be going horribly. Everything after that Nebraska game was insanely frustrating to watch defensively. Offensive, coordinating was very difficult to, just have defense finally make it stop, go 3 and out. And then you got to trot your defense back out there. And there was a lot of frustration, a lot of pent-up anger at not just what was happening on the field, but the things that happened prior to this. So bringing this all together and bringing this video to a close, OU beating Texas on the national stage is big for a lot of reasons, but it was mainly because, we're going to be okay. And that's a weird thing to say, and for a program like Oklahoma, that sounds stupid. Of course Oklahoma football was going to be okay, but there wasn't going to be how big of a drop-off was there going to be for how long of a period of time? Was it going to be 5 years, or was it going to be... Now looks like OU's only taking 1 year off. It looks like Brent can compete for a Big 12 championship this year. I don't think they're going to be able to compete. The recalibration of expectations has kind of started to happen within the fandom, and people think that OU is going to be able to compete at a super high level this year. If they do, great. But that's not where... I just wanted to be able to see improvement. After a 6-7 year last year, this is all you could have ever hoped for as a Sooner fan. And so I'm just happy. I'm just grateful at the job, the OU administration, the NIL collective finally getting their stuff together, Brent. I go back and I think about, if you have watched any of the Brent Venables press conferences, he has, and I think this started this year. I could be wrong on that, but this year I have taken note that whenever Brent shows up, he is listing positive things about where OU is at, the improvements they've made, what's going on. And it's felt almost salesman-ish at times. And that kind of was a head scratcher for me because I understood what happened, and I think most of the fan base did as well. But I wonder if there's some type of PTSD Brent started to feel after last year. You go 6-7, and like I said, he got chased out of Norman almost a little over 11 years ago. I can't imagine what this has been like for him in the wake of a sport that is totally just in shambles with the portal, NIL, all these new elements being injected into what it takes to run a football program successfully. And for him to come in 2 years, one, be able to field a football team. Two, to be able to develop his football team. Three, to retain his players. But Julie, his wife, was diagnosed with cancer. Like, do you understand that? If you look at Brent Venables right now, it genuinely makes me tear up. Like you can see, like, he's really, really struggling. That there's some real stress and anxiety there, and that's kind of just the nature of who he is. You know, he kind of does that to himself. But I can't imagine how you operate under the amount of stress at home. Just knowing, you know, that your wife's health is just a concern. I can't imagine emotionally where he must be at, and to be able to do the things he's done. I just think, you know, that speaks volume to his character, and as someone who has loved this program. And how, you know, through how many hard times OU has gotten me through my life. It's incredible to watch what he's done for those players, for this team. So yeah, this was our Super Bowl, and I'm damn proud of the job he's done and the things he's accomplished. And I think OU's going to be just fine. I hope Brent's heart medicine is up to snuff, and he's able to delegate and reduce some of his stressors going forward, and, you know, finally get his hands around the program and be able to kind of put it on rails a little bit and not need to be as hands-on as I think he's needed to be just because of the nature of this beast. So that's all I got. Thank you for watching. I hope to do more content like this, and if you enjoy Sooner football or sports in general, I hope you'll stick around. Thank you. Have a good one.